I'm getting so scared. I just looked over at my heater, which is to my left, and like I saw a pipe that I don't normally see, and I was like, oh my god, she's back. This is a story that is gonna be really hard to tell. It's daytime now, thank god, because I don't think I could tell this at nighttime, nor do I think I'd want to. It's a story that I've not really told to that many people, and that is that I grew up in a haunted house. I think I've always had sort of an intuition when it comes to the other side. I do not have proof from this old house. I do have proof of other paranormal experiences in my life. So this is just kind of a paranormal story time of like how I grew up. Okay, so let's get into it. So basically, ever since I was a young kid, I've been a little sensitive, I would say, to that sort of realm. When I was younger, like I remember people telling me I was always a little strange, and my mother tells a story, I don't have any memory of this, which I think is quite strange, that the last weekend I ever saw my maternal grandmother, I literally would not let her go. She was staying with us and I just started freaking out when she was gonna leave, and I wasn't a bad kid. I never threw tantrums. I was always pretty docile. Like I'm a very affectionate person, like just in general, and I was definitely affectionate when I was younger. And so it kind of was strange that I was freaking out over my grandmother leaving. Like it wasn't a normal thing for me to do. And then the next week she actually passed away. So it's been one of those things that my whole life I've always had sort of a feeling about it. I remember when we were younger, very young, my sister's also into like kind of mysticky stuff. She's 10 years older than me, so when she was babysitting when we were younger, she brought a Ouija board over once, and I was super excited, and I remember running around the house. I was like, oh my god, we're gonna talk to angels. I've always kind of loved angels, had a little bit of a fascination with them. I have a very Irish background, a very Irish culture, and in Irish culture, angels are always really good, and you know, we have a lot of religious roots, and so I think I was very naive that that was going to be what it was. And the Ouija board did work. We ended up talking with somebody of Native American descent, which is where we lived. That would not be uncommon, and it really stuck with me in not a great way. You know, I always felt even closer to the spirit world after that. I would see things in my house all the time, and this is just my childhood of this house. To me, I didn't think it was haunted. Even looking back, it doesn't seem haunted, but there was always kind of a creepy feeling around me when I was younger. And when we moved to the house where I technically say I grew up in, just because I lived there the longest, I took a room that was kind of in a new wing of the house. It had been built on later, and like the floorboards were different. I think it was myself and my brother's room were both new, like they weren't part of the original house. The first thing I remember being weird about this room is we saw the house, like we toured it once or twice before we actually moved in, and I remember there's this picture, and if I ever find it, I'll be able to post it, but I've looked numerous times and I've never been able to find this picture, and my mother can attest that this does exist because she took the picture, and it's of my room from the backyard. Like my mother's always loved taking pictures, and you know, obviously we're moving into this new house, she wants to take as many pictures as possible to see where she's gonna put everything. And so we were standing in the backyard, she was shooting up at, like, there's a balcony that was connected to my brother's room, and then there was the window to my room. And they were kind of like on a corner, if that makes sense. The window to my room had blinds that were open, and you could see that there was a figure standing in the window, and it was a little girl. And what was so interesting is, like, on first glance, we figured it must have been either me or they had a little girl living there at the time. And in looking back at the photo, it wasn't either of us. Like, I'm very clearly blonde, I have been for most of my life. My hair's pretty bright, and this girl had very dark hair. And then we also remembered that the other girl was in school at this time, so it could not have been either of us. So that should have been the first warning that, like, maybe my room wasn't normal. Oh my god, I'm getting, like, chills. Like, if my camera goes out, I'm literally gonna start crying. I lived there for about 10 years, and those 10 years were easily the worst of my life, and they started out very dark and ended very dark. And what's so interesting is now not living in that place, I'm such a light person. Like, I'd say I'm not necessarily, like, always positive, like I have a really dark sense of humor, but I'm pretty happy. And so the first weird thing that I remember happening was I had sprained my ankle, and this, I might be getting the timeline wrong, there were so many weird things that happened in this house. So I sprained my ankle, like, badly, and this is I think when people think you sprain your ankle, it's like, oh, it's just a little, you know, you wrap it in some base bandage and you're done. This was horrific. Like, essentially, my brother had lifted me up on my birthday in a big hug, and his back had like tweaked a little bit, so he let go of me and I landed with my ankle like dead sideways, like just like that. And so they thought it was fractured. It was about the size of a grapefruit for, I want to say, like 2 or 3 months. I had to wear, it wasn't necessarily a cast, it was a very large brace that went from about mid-thigh down to my ankle, and wrapped around my foot. And I had to walk in crutches, and when you have a broken ankle and you have a cast, you can't put it in water. Well, I could, because I could take my cast on and off, but I still had to be very, very careful. And so I would have to hold on to the soap dish every time I was showering or anything like that. I was in my shower, and I was just gingerly like moving around, and all of a sudden, the shower curtain just went bang and like caved in on me. So it caved in on me, I tripped, I fell down, I re-sprained the ankle, I couldn't even breathe, I was so scared, and like in my heart of hearts, I knew there was no rational explanation for this. Like, I knew there wasn't. It wasn't, I would say, like, if you have a draft, like, this is how I put it, if you have a draft in your room, which I have in my other rooms, like, sometimes curtains shift and they sway a little bit or something like that. The windows were closed, the door was closed to the bathroom. There was nothing else there, and it very clearly looked as though an arm had gone like bam, like just very clearly. So I fell, I hurt my ankle again, and the thing that like is so strange and how it kind of just solidified like this is not normal is I would put my crutches in my room and then be in my bathroom. Like I would just kind of hobble over there, it wasn't too far, it was connected to my room. How I had my crutches was I would put, like, I'm a weird dresser anyways, like I'm eccentric, so I like to wear weird things, and so I'd put ribbons on my crutches and I put them above the handlebars because in my mind, like, they're gonna slip down like when I'm walking, blah 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 blah. I get out of the shower and they are all below the handlebars and they are pushed down, and I remember this being like, oh my god, like I definitely didn't do that, like I would never put them below the handlebars, like that's such a stupid style choice. So I remember freaking out, and I remember going to my mom, and my mom believes in this stuff too, like wholeheartedly, my whole family does. And she basically told me, she was like, it's okay, it's probably just, you know, one of your relatives saying hi, like very much played it off in a good way, and just said, you know, hey, it's probably, you know, your grandpa or your grandma, and they're just telling you that they love you and that they want to keep you safe. And I was like, I don't think they're keeping me safe. Like I remember very clearly thinking, whatever this is doesn't like me very much. So, continuing on, the house itself was very creepy. Like, it was very large, like obnoxiously large, and especially if there were lots of people there, it was a very happy household, I will say that. And it was very good for parties and stuff like that. We always had friends over. But if you were alone in the house, or if it was just you and another person, it was terrifying. Like, you could just feel that something was wrong. So for me at least, lights would come on and off all the time, especially in my room. I would wake up at 3 a.m. with the lights on, and what was so funny is I had, like, this was like mid-2000s, so these are really popular then. They're super not popular now for probably good reason. I had like a remote that I could turn my light on and off with, and then I also had a switch on my wall, but like mainly I used the remote. I will say even now, like, I don't turn lights on in my house, and I wasn't big on it then. Like, I would always have my lights off, and every once in a while they'd come on, and it was usually at about 3 in the morning. And then I remember this one time my brother and I were watching A Haunting, or one of those shows on the Travel Channel where they're talking about like the 10 most haunted places, and we were home alone, so it must have been like mid-high school, and we were downstairs in our basement, and it said very clearly on the television about, like, I think it was the Winchester house. It was, and they said on the TV all the lights went off in the house all the time. And my brother was upstairs, I think, getting pizza, and literally the minute the TV said all the lights go off, the TV went out and the lights in the basement went out. No other lights in the house. It wasn't like, oh, everything has shorted out. It was, the fuse has gone in the basement. And so I was down there, I screamed, I ran upstairs to go find him, and I like made him turn all the lights back on because I certainly couldn't do it, I was too scared. And that would happen quite often, but that was the one that for me I was like, and I just felt like there was somebody else down there with me. Like, honestly, I felt like somebody had turned the lights off. It wasn't just as short. And it was the fact that the TV went off. Oh, and there were more than one fuse for the basement. Like, the basement was quite big, so we had half the basement on one fuse, half the basement on another fuse, and the odds of both fuses going out at the same time, pretty freaking low. So they both went out at the same time. So moving on from there, my room in general was always colder than the rest of the house. And we always kind of thought that this was maybe just because it was on a new wing, or I'm always cold. I'm one of those people who, like, I'm constantly freezing. So I thought maybe, hey, this is just part of that. Well, I think it was when I was in high school and we started, like, I started talking about this paranormal stuff with my friends. I have a lot of friends who are really into paranormal stuff, and one of my friends said that she had a paranormal experience with a guy in a top hat. And I was like, it's really quite strange, because I think about a guy in a top hat a lot in my room. And she was like, that's really weird. That is common for both of us. And she goes, yeah, sometimes he lifts the paintings off my walls and just puts them on the ground. And I was like, I've never had that, but there's definitely a corner of my room that I won't go over to. And she was like very confused. And this girl had been my friend for a long time, to the point where she would have like been over to my house. Like, she has known me for years. And I was like, nope, there is a part of my room that I will not go towards. And my room is not that big, like, and I would avoid it at all costs. In the corner there was the closet, and in front of the closet is where I would not go. If I had to get my set of drawers on the left side of my bed, the closet was on the left side of my bed, I would crawl across my bed to go to the drawers. I would never walk over in the corner of the closet. And she was like, that's really strange. And it was always so dark in that corner. And I have like some old videos of me shot in that room, and it's very strange that, like, even if the rest of the room was lit, that corner was always dark. And it had a light kind of over there, it had a window, and it was always dark. At night, I began feeling like somebody was watching me, and I would definitely hear somebody talking, and it was always the little girl, and it was always right in front of that window. Oh my god, I'm getting so scared. I just looked over at my heater, which is to my left, and like, I saw a pipe that I don't normally see, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's back. I'm getting so freaked out right now, you guys. Like, I never tell this story to anybody. Okay, so anyway, so I knew, I'm gonna try to wrap this up because I can't breathe. I'm getting so anxious. Freaked out. Okay. And like, something's making a weird noise outside. I think it's a garbage truck. We're gonna say it's a garbage truck because I can't take anything else right now. So, anyways, I knew it was a little girl, and I knew there was a man in the corner of my room. And they were there for years, and sometimes I could feel like the darkness was consuming me, like completely consuming me. Anyways, I finally like went to college and moved out of that house, and it was so different. Like, I could breathe again. What was so funny is I had gone to see a psychic, like I think my freshman year of college, because I love psychics. Like, if you are a psychic, hit me up. Like, I think they're really interesting. I love if they can, you know, tell you something about your life that you didn't know before. Well, so I went to see a psychic, and I wasn't even asking about my room. Like, I didn't even mention it. And she just immediately picked up on it. She's like, you have a really bad relationship with the room you live in, don't you? And I was like, what does that even mean? And she goes, no, there's something weird going on in your room. And she goes, do you wake up at 3:24 every morning? And I was like, how the fuck do you know that? Because I was waking up at 3:24 on the dot every morning. I'd go back to sleep, but I'd look at, like, I had a digital clock next to my bed. Always look at it, always 3:24 in the morning. And even now, if I wake up at, like, even close to 3:24, I will close my eyes until 3:24 is passed. Like, I refuse to look at my clock if I even think it could be close to 3:24 in the morning, because it freaks me out. She was like, there's a man in your room and there's a little girl in your room, and they really don't like you. And I was like, great. So you're just telling me everything that I've known for 10 years. And I was like, are they connected to me or to the house? And she goes, I think they're connected to the house, but like, if you let them, they will become connected to you. And that to me was so horrific, because I'm like, I don't want them anywhere near me. Like, I knew for a fact that that was a thing. So anyway, so I go home and I tell this to my dad, and my dad, he believes in all this, and he kind of like lets us believe in all of it, but he never really mentions anything of his. And he kind of looked at me really strange after I told him what the psychic said, and he was like, that's really funny. And I thought that was a very weird thing for him to say. I was like, what do you mean that's very funny? He goes, that's very funny, because I've been home alone in the summer and thought you were home. He goes, every once in a while I think you're home because I can hear you laughing. And he goes, it sounds like you were laughing when you were a little kid. And I was like, it's the little girl. But then he'd hear running in the house or somebody walking up the stairs. Like, people walking up the stairs I would hear all the time, and so would everybody else. Like, just even if you were home alone, you'd hear somebody walking upstairs. Well, I've not really had so many paranormal experiences since then. Like, I've had paranormal experiences, never in my own realm, like never in my own house. Really hoping that this doesn't incite anything. Actually, no, that's wrong. I did have something happen in my house. Oh my god, that story's super intense. That's really bad. If you want me to tell it, just leave a note in the comments. I obviously want to know what type of content you guys want from me. And yeah, so I am gonna hopefully make a few more insane cases. I just did a video on Tanya Head, who lied about being in the World Trade Center and pretty much got away with it. It's a really interesting case. I totally recommend you guys watching it. I'll put the link in the description. And just remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, have a wonderful day, my munchkins. Give up the ghost, give up the ghost.